Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the new and improved Fight Talk 2021. We're moving forward. We got 2020 in the rearview mirror, so we had to switch the name up on you. A little bit of better production as well, just slightly. That being said, we have great, tremendous fights to kick off the new year, and I got my man here to talk to you about it right after this.
Raymond, thank you very much for the warm introduction. Rob Modesto, Celebration Title Group, down here in Tampa, ready to get talking about these fights, man.
Perfect, my man. Glad to have you back. I would like to have you as a regular guest in the future. Rob's recap, you know what we got to do. Before we get into just the fight I'm so excited about tomorrow night, ABC, #1, fight night. I have a few questions I want to run down for you, okay? First of all, which KO was worse? Ponzinibbio or Buckley? And I don't mean just combined with how brutal it was and for what it means to them. Which one was worse?
I would say that the Ponzinibbio knockout is worse. Reason being because he has been out of the game for a while, and this was supposed to be his return back to the UFC and back to the fighting game, and he just got brutally destroyed. Whereas Buckley, we know what he is. He's a young up and comer. He's going to bounce back from this. Ponzinibbio's not that guy. He's one of the older guys in the division. So I think as far as career goes, it's more devastating for Ponzinibbio than it is for Buckley.
That is a good point. I would bring a slight counter to that, even though I do agree with those points, right? I would bring the counter as in with Ponzinibbio, he almost has a built-in excuse, right? He hasn't been active. He got caught. Okay, it happens. Let's see what happens on the next one, right? Because if he has a stellar performance in the next one, they put him against, I don't know, Luque or something like that, right? Then he's right back in there, and he can kind of brush that one under the rug as he got me. Whereas Buckley, with you seen the way they were shaping him in the production and the promotion, right? They were kind of, we were able to get past the Kevin Holland knockout with these two stellar knockouts, and they wanted this guy to be kind of that kid. That's the way I felt. And then with him getting so brutally knocked out like that, it shut that down. So it's a little bit of a counter, but I do agree with you on that as well.
Well, Buckley was getting the Ngannou treatment a little bit. The highlight reel, KOs, all that stuff. And, this is what Stipe was to Ngannou is what this fight was to Buckley, in my opinion. We see how Ngannou has turned out. Obviously he's going to be fighting for the belt here soon. So I'm hoping that Buckley turns it around and doesn't let this kind of weigh him down too much.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even mind if he loses one every once in a while or gets knocked out every once in a while. But if he puts together some highlight reel knockouts, I'll be watching him every time. Whether he gets a highlight reel knockout, or he gets highlight reel knocked out, I'll watch it.
Oh, I'm in on it, 100%.
Yes, sir. Now, moving on to the co-main event, the Natural Born Killer, stellar performance. The question we discussed previously, does he get cut after this with it being his last fight?
I don't know that he gets cut. He's a free agent after this fight, so he won't get cut, obviously, because he's not under contract after this fight. Whether or not he returns to the UFC is another question.
Does he get re-signed is the question.
I don't. Probably. He probably does. I hope he does, and I hope he makes all the money in the world because he's a legend in the game. I more foresee him going somewhere like Bellator after this.
I saw they kind of asked him, Dana, a little bit about that. Not really directly on the nose the question, but he said, I love Condit. I love this guy. I love watching him fight. So it didn't seem like it, right? But at the same time, we didn't see the Yoel release happening either. So it's up in the air. I saw on Instagram earlier today somebody posting a picture of him with Mike Perry saying, "Who wants to see this fight?" Rob, do you want to see that fight?
I'm down for any fight of two demons. So, the natural born killer versus Platinum Mike Perry is very intriguing to me. But, if they're willing to let go of a guy like Anthony Pettis as well, I think that they're probably going to be willing to let go of Carlos Condit, unfortunately.
I agree with that. Now, moving on to the main event. Before, I mean, we even talk about how stellar a performance this was. I saw a tweet that was saying that people need to talk about this more. Just the fact of the records that were broken, the fact that they were saying this was like the NBA record of 100 points getting broken by 153 points in one game. Like that's the way they should be talking. Like Adrian Peterson's record, like if he improved on that by 53%, that's what this should be in the equivalency of. Before we talk about that, before that fight, they announced that Alex will be fighting Ortega, kind of making it so no matter what Max does, he's not getting that third fight. Now, let me ask you, does Alex beat Ortega?
Yes, he does. Yes,
I
he
mean,
does.
you don't think that what are the odds that you would say if you were to say like percentage wise?
I would say that there's probably a 79.4% chance that that Ortega loses that fight.
I like those odds because you never know. Or Ortega is real slick. He could catch a guillotine, something crazy.
Absolutely, he's called T City for a reason. We'll see how he does on his back once he's Volkanovski gets him there inevitably.
If Max were to fight Volkanovski again, does he win number three?
Yes, I thought that he won number two. To be fair, so if he comes out and has a performance like he did the other night, I think he's a world beater. Going back to what you were saying earlier, I think that it is a shame that we're not counting that as an all-time. Well, I guess maybe casuals aren't counting it as an all-time performance. We are, just because we love the sport so much. But there's so many ways to win in this game that you know, people only remember the crazy knockouts. They don't remember, Max down the road. They're not going to remember him having 500, whatever significant strikes, whatever amount it was. So but it's factual. It's an all-time performance, objectively.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. Now that being said, I was going to ask you, which is kind of the same question: is Max the best featherweight? Is he better than Volkanovski?
Yes, he is better than Volkanovski, I believe. Like I said, he got the bet. He fair and square at the first fight. Volkanovski won that. Doesn't really. There's no question in my mind on that, and I don't think there's a question on many people's minds on that. The second fight, up in the air. I thought that Max won. And sometimes when you're on a streak like Max was, who had only lost to your favorite boy Conor McGregor previously, maybe you get complacent. I think would be the best word. I think maybe that's what happened in the first Volko fight. Second, again, I think that Max won. I think that Max has a new energy about him, man. He's got the long hair, don't care. He's not sparring anymore. So I think
Skateboarding
that
by windows, all that good stuff.
exactly. Skateboarding by windows is right. Look, he's in the mindset that he's thinking that am willing to fight this main event upcoming on Saturday, tomorrow. So, that type of dog mindset that he has and has always had, I think is um, he's gonna win the next one.
Yeah, which he definitely won't be. Regardless, he received a 30-day medical suspension, which is appropriate.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you saw Calvin received a 6-month medical suspension, which is also appropriate.
Also appropriate. Yeah.
Whether or not he gets cleared before that, who knows? The real question for that division is: does Max wait and sit around waiting for not only that fight to go down, but then for the winner of that fight, or does he fight Zabit?
Uh, Obviously, it depends how that fight goes. If T City catches him in a triangle in the first minute, then there's not much of a waiting game that's going to happen, or vice versa. If Volkanovski ends up doing something crazy in the first couple minutes, and yeah, but it could end up being a war where both of those fighters end up needing 6-9 months off. So it's hard to predict now, but If it's something quick, obviously he can turn around and fight one of them, but wouldn't mind seeing the Zabit fight either.
Exactly. I think that Zabit fight is pretty much the only fight that really intrigues me, especially for the high level that Max is. Um, I mean, I've told you before, I feel like in the event, like if this all plays out, right, Max fights Volk a third time and then loses another close decision, I would like to see Max put put some weight on some compound lifts, eat some steaks, and go up to 55. Because if he puts a little power and a little umph behind those shots, especially at 55 with that frame that he has, I mean, you said it yourself when he fought Poirier, you just saw the difference in the power.
Well, he's Nate Diaz at 55. That's basically what he is, minus the ground game. But it's the similarities as far as the stand-up goes are, they're pretty much parallel. So I could see him being successful, but he would have to put on some weight. He would have to put on weight to. He'd probably have to walk around at like one. What do you think? 180?
Possibly.
Yeah. So I don't know what he walks around now, but we obviously saw the difference in power between him and Poirier, who's a big 155er. So
Yeah.
if those are the
Which
types of.
I think that could be fixed with time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he didn't have the muscle mass to fight at 155 when he fought Poirier. So now, if he actually makes an effort into doing it, I think he could be very successful.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this: did you catch the fights on Wednesday?
I caught some of the fights on Wednesday. I saw the Chiesa fight. Bored me to tears. Not going to lie to you about it. Wasn't the most entertaining fight, but that's what Chiesa does. He's kind of a ground master, so that's fine. And I caught some of the earlier fights as well, but I was working while I was doing it, so it was like a half pay attention, half not. I have to catch up on it tomorrow morning before we get the day started for the 257. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
so I did. I watched them. Now, when it comes to, there's only two fights that I even care to bring up. And first of all, it's that main event. Well, I feel like, especially in the welterweight division, Dana is looking for activity, right? Magny was active, 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 and now he just got shut down. And then that's why you see fights like Chimaev versus Rocky getting made, because Rocky, who hasn't been really active, and then Chimaev, who has been active, you get that matchup even though it shouldn't happen. Now, Chiesa is somebody that hasn't really been that active. So that being said, do you think he gets a top five opponent in his next fight?
I don't think he should get a top five opponent in his next fight. No. I think that he's just out. What is he ranked now? Was he like number 9 or something?
He was number 9, and I think Magny was like number 8. So it was like an 8 versus
Okay.
9. So it might bump him up to like number 7.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if by nature of him being bumped up to 7 that he gets like a 5 or a 6, then I'd agree with it. But I'm not prepared to see another Michael Chiesa main event. Just unless they're willing to do another 3 p.m. card, which
Yeah.
makes no sense on inauguration day when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
So unless they're willing to do that, then that's fine. But it's not something that necessarily blows my hair back.
Yeah, that whole event, I felt like it was just one of those, hey, we owe these fighters fights and we have to get them fights. So we're just going to throw them in on these fights, get it done. And then that way we don't, we've met our obligation. But I would say the highlight of the whole card, I might be butchering her name, uh, Aranjo, you know who I'm talking about?
I
She's a
don't.
she's a woman at fights at flyweight. She's a Brazilian. She's 34 years old, right? But she fought Roxanne Modafferi. And the reason I bring that up is because you saw how they were trying to hype up Macy Barber as the next thing in the flyweight division, because the flyweight division in the women's is so boring and there's nothing to talk about, right? So when I see a performance like what she put against Roxanne, both of her eyes were like nearly shut. She was getting dropped, hit. Arujo started kind of slowing down. Like I said, she's 34 years old, so it's like, okay, is she going to be able to fight Valentina? Because that's really what we're looking for. Who's going to fight Valentina, right? It looks like what's her face is next. You know what I'm talking about?
For Amanda Rebus.
No, 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 no. The one who knocked out Rose, Andrade.
Knocked out. Oh, Jessica Andrade. Yeah,
It
yeah,
looks
yeah.
like Andrade is going to fight next. And I had heard something that was very upsetting, and I hope it was just a spoken. It was from I think John Anik said it when he was going over the card for 257, which we're about to get to, and it was a fight with Jessica I and I think JoJo they're fighting, and
Mhm.
he had mentioned that as a title elimination fight. Listen, I don't know if there's anything else I want to see less than Jessica I fight for the title again.
Yeah, she got absolutely canned by by Valentina, and for her health, I would prefer her not to fight Valentina again. I think that
Yeah.
no, hard pass.
But see, when I bring up this other girl, right, as a potential, I look at her previous record, and she had just recently lost a decision to Jessica I. So now it's just kind of that division kind of sits in limbo. But the performance was really good. I have to admit, I was very impressed with it. The striking was just phenomenal. That being said, let's move on. Tomorrow night is the big fight. Now, as far as the whole card, I could care less besides the co-main event and the main event, right? So let me ask you, Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. Who wins? When will they win? How will they win? Why will they win? Go.
I believe that Dan Hooker will win uh, by decision. I think that he's going to beat Michael Chandler up pretty well in the stand-up game. I think he's one of those dogs that you see. You have those guys in 155 that are just they scare you. So you have Hooker, you have guys like Justin Gaethje. There's a whole list of them who are just you'd have to kill him to get him out of there. Not necessarily that I don't think that Michael Chandler's one of those guys. I think that it's just a big stage, and he's going to be fighting a big dog now. So that's how I see it going down. How about you?
I mean, dude, I'm talking about for years. I've been so excited for Michael Chandler to join the UFC. So excited. I think the only other thing that's more exciting than Michael Chandler joining the UFC is Conor McGregor fighting tomorrow. But when he's fighting Dan Hooker, I'm like, oh man, out of everyone, Dan Hooker, because he even admitted himself, he goes, I think this is the toughest matchup for me. Dan Hooker's stand up is really good. He might, and it's not that I don't have the faith in Michael Chandler, but just after seeing last May him getting just clipped by Pitbull and stopped like that, I'm like, it's not like you're chinny or nothing because it was back here, but just that being able to happen, I've already been disappointed before. Either way, I'm looking forward to a really good fight. I'm hoping Chandler can, push him against the fence, get him down, maybe beat him up. But like I said, Dan's stand up is so good. That knee coming up the middle is crazy, especially with Chandler being a shorter guy. And then if Chandler tries to, dodge the knee by bringing the head on the outside, that guillotine's right there. Dan
And
does
let's
have
not
a really
forget
good
let
guillotine
let's not forget that Dan Hooker is training with arguably the best team in the world right now. At least the most successful team in the world right now.
at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so those guys out in New Zealand, they have something brewing up over there, and I think they're going to be on a long run for a long time.
Yeah, bro, they're drinking some good hot dog water out there.
Yes, sir.
That being said, the main event, what we've all been waiting for, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 2. Now, same question: who wins? When? How? Why?
It's going to be Conor McGregor by TKO um, in I don't think the first round. Let's give him the second round. I think you know we've seen the Poirier show before, right? We know what's happening, and we've also seen the McGregor show, and we know that when the bright lights turn on, he shows up. So I think that he is going to purposely. I know he said he's going to be done in under a minute. I think he's going to be purposely not do that because people have been talking about his conditioning, McGregor's conditioning, and I think that he's going to stretch it out just a little bit longer and give him just a little extra beating, and then finish him off in the second round.
That is a great prediction. Um, I think when it comes to the conditioning, obviously the criticisms are warranted before, right? Because we saw the Nate Diaz fight, both of them at welterweight. So it's kind of like, okay, we see why, right? The extra weight, whatever, he's not used to it. Even when he was fighting at featherweight, um, kind of, once he would hit that right past that initial blitz, you could start seeing him kind of breathe a little bit. And that happens with fighters who are used to just knocking guys out early, right? You see that happen. But I mean, we're talking about 5 years ago, right? 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. And then when he fought Floyd, you kind of saw the same thing, but that was something that he'd never done before. That was the longest fight of his career. I mean, I think he's had so much time to train and gain that cardio, especially with bringing in these guys, that I don't think the cardio is going to be an issue anymore. And even then, I don't know. I think Dustin will get busted up because he does kind of like, even in that Dan Hooker fight, he was getting busted up at the end of that second round. Had that been another minute, he might have got stopped. But I think the biggest thing, and it's something that Dustin had mentioned, I forget where he mentioned it, but it was on one of these media shows, right? They had asked him, is like, how big of a factor does your mindset play into this? And he said, the mindset is everything, right? He said, when you get to this level, you know how to fight, your skills are there, but the mindset is everything. And I want to use that against him because I think Dustin's going to lose because he's already lost in his mind. When you hear Ally Quinta say, oh, Dustin's just showing up, he's just glad to be part of the show. Obviously, you hear guys like DC say, no, that's not, Dustin's here, he's ready. I feel like just the subtle body language and his mannerisms, I feel like he is just excited to be part of the show. On one of the pre-show things, countdown or something, he had even mentioned like, oh, it's red panty night. Like, he's excited to play. He's excited to be a part of it. If you watch the weigh-ins, the press conference, Conor McGregor is dictating everything. Conor McGregor is dictating I would say even Chandler too, and not so much Dan. Dan doesn't really care, but they're just all like, it was such a polite press conference because Conor wanted it to be, right?
Sure.
Because none of them want to be Jeremy Stevens.
Nah, that's a great point. And just to kind of piggyback on that, you can tell that Connor's kind of in a different mind space, even down to the little things. Like today, he weighed in first. It was always an issue, even getting down to 55. There was no secret that it was an issue for him to get down to weight. But today, he weighed in first, and he didn't look sucked in. He looked like he had been on weight for the past couple of days. So whether that gives you some, yeah, and whether that gives you some sort of mental advantage, I don't know. But as a fan, I see that and I'm like, oh, okay, like it's about to go down. It's about to get serious because he wasn't like this before. People have been talking a lot of stuff about him. He had some bad news come out about him this week, some bad PR. He's just letting it slide right off of his back. So now that we've seen that he's kind of in that mind frame, I think that the fight's already done.
Yeah, I had mentioned to you before about his mindset, right? Like when you saw before he fought Jose Aldo, he kept saying, I'm in a perfect state of zen. I just want the fight to happen. I'm ready. I've been around the world with this guy, 15 press conferences. I'm in a state of zen. I am ready. I'm at peace. And then he went out there and did that, right? Then when you see him fight Khabib, that was not zen. You know what I mean? He's wasted at the press conference. All of that, we could go into detail about that, but for time's sake, we won't. And then when you see him fight Cowboy, he was doing the same thing. Oh, I'm at peace. I'm ready. And then he does that performance. And the other thing that was similar to the Cowboy is what Dustin said. I don't want to seem like we're up here giving each other back massages. That was basically kind of what Cowboy said too. Like, he played right into that. Oh yeah, hey buddy, come here, take a picture with me. All of that because Conor, that's Conor dictated that, right? Even look at the mannerisms. Going back to the press conference, right? There was a time where they did a split screen and they showed Conor talking and then they showed Dustin, and Dustin was like swallowing. He looked nervous up there, and it was just very subtle, right? He looked kind of like, like when he spoke, he looked like he was trying to like convince you, like, oh yeah, I'm confident myself. And the confidence with McGregor, there's no questioning, right?
Sure.
And then when we go into the weigh-ins, what Conor goes like this, gets low, Dustin gets low. Conor stands back up, Dustin stands back up. And then Dustin was so excited to give him that hot sauce.
He was. He was. Yeah, even though he said he was going to wait till Sunday to give it to him.
Yeah, he like couldn't wait. He was like, "Oh, I got to give him the hot sauce. Hopefully he likes it."
Well,
So
he's got to have him take a picture of it on Instagram while he's trending right now.
yeah, exactly. So he's trying to get that promotion. But
Exactly.
what do you think about
Just
those
real
points?
quick, just to again piggyback on that, something that I always think of, and I don't know why it stuck with me, but when Kevin Lee was having a lot of his issues, he was getting knocked out, he was getting submitted. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Rogan had mentioned to him like, "Hey, man, when you are walking out and you're leading up to the fight and you're talking all this smack and you're doing your walkout and you're dancing around, like you're all hype. Stop it. Go out there like a samurai. Lead up to the fight like a samurai, and then you won't have that little bit of mental space taken up by, oh, I talked all this smack. Now I have to win. Now I have to not be embarrassed. You don't have that anymore. And I think that that's something that Connor is kind of, we've seen, going back to the Khabib thing, he talked a lot of smack during that leading up to it. And I think he had something in the back of his head, like, hey, I have to prove myself now that I said all these things, blah, 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 blah. But with Cowboy in this fight leading up to it, the expectations aren't necessarily low, but like no one's gonna trash you on social media because you lost, because you've been talking smack the whole time. He's playing the nice guy game, which I appreciate, and I appreciate kind of more that samurai mindset.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. One last point about the mindset, right? Because I think this has to do with it as well when it comes to Dustin. Um, this is all familiar for Dustin, right? Think about if there's anything that's ever been traumatic in anybody's life, it like that sticks with you, right? Just anybody in general. Now, as a fighter, it's part of the game, right? Getting knocked out. He got knocked out by Connor, and as much as he can say, like, oh, it's not affecting me, maybe if he didn't have to see it 300 times leading up to the fight, but he has to watch it. He has to watch the footage of his face, the disappointment, all of that. Now, not only that, but think about the last time he made that long flight to Abu Dhabi. He was confident,
Khabib.
he was ready, and then he went out there and he lost, and he had to take that long flight back home after he was crying, right? So it's not only is that familiar, but this is familiar too. So I'm not seeing that same confidence before the Khabib fight that I'm seeing now. And I'm just seeing these, like I mentioned, these subtle things, the swallowing, the head movements, like, oh yeah, like it's almost like he's trying to convince himself along with them. And I think that'll play into it. And maybe we will see Connor end it early. But like he said, if it ends up being a war, then he's up for it too.
That's right. Yeah, I think Dustin understands the magnitude of the situation and what this could mean. If it turns out to be a great fight, that's two painting nights if they get a rematch. So we'll see how it ends up.
Right. So that being said, I look forward to it. I look forward to catching up with you maybe Monday or Tuesday after the fights are over, and then we could talk about that and talk about the future and what this fight means for the future of the division and the sport.
I'm looking forward to the next R&R recap, the Ray and Rob recap.
Absolutely. All right, brother.
Thank you, sir.